Yeah, video games.
So video games.
This is great. This is a great sort of lesson in like streams of consciousness. It's like we got from like silly bullshit to video games to we went from True Detective to video games to
silly bullshit.
Silly bullshit.
Silly bullshit came out a few times.
Like there's always, I feel like silly bullshit is like the if this show is a train, silly bullshit is like the little connector bits in between. So it's like if you're just traversing the train cars, you know, you're gonna have to like open up the door, step out across the silly bullshit, open up the next door, you know, look down at the tracks.
I'd like to get back on the social justice tangent again, because there was a point I wanted to make, and so yeah, I have some really smart. Check me out, son. Let me spit some game.
Check out my melody.
I got some really smart shit to say.
Got big things. Big things to say.
Big ideas. Big topics.
Gonna make a big point.
Big point.
Got a big idea. It's gonna be really big. Big
gonna be on the big panel on the big show on Big Time with Big Mar.
I mean, I don't know why that happened just now, but I don't know. Like, I don't watch the show a lot, so maybe I'm off base. But there's something about Bill Maher that bugs me.
Is it that he? I mean,
I also like that. I feel like Bill Maher and Dennis Miller are like the same dude,
but on different sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's like know that Family Guy bit where like Michael Moore comes home and it's just like he unzips his suit and Rush Limbaugh pops out like they're the same dude just in different costumes.
Yeah,
I get that weird vibe because there's something about Bill Maher that I just can't. Get warmed to.
His persona, his stage persona, is like purposefully condescending and abrasive, and that's like not.
It's not my jam.
Yeah, it's like it's not good for reaching across the aisle, so to speak. It's not good for bringing any kind of synthesis, I guess. Unless it's like amongst people of your own stripe. But it's like, you know, there are things that, you know, it's like there are things I agree with Bill Maher on, but it's like there are things like the dude's got a real, like someone like on show about race I was listening to earlier today. Yeah. No, this was their guest host. He said, I think it was him that says, like, Bill Maher, it's like, dude's got like this hate boner for Islam. That's really weird. And it's like, it's like I remember. I think it was like during the in the wake of Charlie Hebdo. There's like Bill Maher was saying shit like bashing Islam and being like, and I'm the liberal in this debate. I'm like, not on this point though. It's like you may think you're the liberal on other debates, but in the whole like
just because it's on your name tag doesn't mean every view you have is automatically liberal.
Yeah, it's like I mean, and that's the case with everybody. I mean, it's like most people that are quote unquote liberal in America are actually just kind of like pretty moderate. Yeah. It's like, and in the case of Bill Maher, it's like, I'm the liberal in this debate. It's like, not really. You're kind of in this debate of like, is Islam good or should it be expunged from the earth? Your stance is not on the liberal end. Yeah. But it's, oh fuck, my good big point. Oh no. Where'd it go?
Okay, go back. Okay. Because you were listening to the podcast as the co-host was talking.
No, this is before that.
This is big point.
This is big point.
Get back to
the whole topic of social justice, if you want to call it that. It's like there's and this ties into the whole idea. It's like, you know, what we think of like as a liberal stance in America actually isn't. Like, you know, the whole idea of like, I'm not racist, I don't see race, or I don't see color, or things like that. That was theoretically the liberal standpoint, where it's like, I can't be a racist because I refuse to acknowledge that race exists. I'm like, well, then you're just basically kind of being complicit with a culture that skews towards favoring and accepting the white person's experience above everyone else. It's like, you can't say, I'm not a racist, I don't see race. It's like, if you say you don't see race, you are erasing... You're erasing identities. You're erasing the identities of people who have, well, any race other than what the mainstream culture accepts as, like, the default, most normal position, and that is white. Well, yeah, I was like... You're being complicit in racism.
I used to jump on that whole thing of, like, oh, yeah, colorblind, and then it was introduced to me later on. It's like, no, colorblind is not necessarily where it's at, because you're still homogenizing everybody into one thing. It's like, you shouldn't be colorblind, you should just respect it and try to understand, because it's like all cultures are different, and that's really cool. But we should learn to within reason, accept the different stuff and incorporate all that so that it's a safe place for everyone to be.
I think, like, looking back on the way I tried to wrap my head around this stuff when I was younger, it's like I kept on. It's like every time my brain would get opened up to a bigger part of the puzzle as I was growing up, it's like I would think, "Oh yeah, good, now I got it," and then it's like, and then there would be more to that. And it's like, yeah, I think I stopped at like, colorblind Central Station at some point in my adolescence, but then I was like, no, that shit doesn't work either. Yeah, because.
Well, that's the whole process. Like with any learning, I've noticed. Like over time, I've stopped. I've tried to stop that being like I figured this one out, because like the whole process of learning is like when you start learning, you're a kid, you're in school. It's like they teach you these broad stroke ideas, and then every year you sort of pair them. It's like you start with this giant slab of marble, and then every year somebody comes by with a chisel and takes off a little more of it. Yeah. And so, like, the ideas get more and more complex.
And more intricate.
And I feel like they'll just always do that.
Like I remember when I was in kindergarten, we saw a big sheet that listed big sheet that listed every number from 1 to 100. I remember being a 4-year-old kid in kindergarten and looking, like, at digits 1 through 100 and thinking, oh, that's all the numbers. I got them.
Yes!
I'm done. Oh, man, I can't believe I just, like, my first day and I have completed all math.
I'm done with all the numbers.
It's like, I got them. All I got to do is just remember them all.
Yeah.
It's like, and they just keep on repeating. It's like there's 61 through 69, and then after that, 71 through 79. I got this in the bag. And then, of course, it's like, and I don't get how French kids do it, because, like, certain numbers in French are just, like, drawn out in weird ways.
How so?
Okay, there is no French word for 80.
No, why?
What they have is 80, which is 420. Yeah.
Why 420 and not 810?
I have no idea. I mean, maybe it's just like
maybe that's an Easter egg where like
maybe it's an Easter egg.
Some old time French dude was like, "Hey man, yo, I got this great idea for the numéros.
Jean, come into le salon. I got this. What if the number that comes after septième? What if it was, because it's going to be 4 times 20, right? What if we call it 80?
420? My French accent is terrible.
Your French accent is good by...
Sacre bleu!
Your French accent is perfect by, like, cartoon standards.
That's where most of my accents fall.
But I mean, that's good, because, like, no one wants a realistic French accent, because a realistic French accent is, like, extremely boring, and you barely move your mouth at all.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very,
So how does Jiggle do on the trailer for The Walk?
I didn't watch it yet.
Oh.
I got it again.
Because he's full on...
Because I haven't seen this. I haven't seen the trailer for The Walk that actually has any dialogue yet. I've just seen the 3D the tease, like, up through the tower, which is, like, insane in 3D.
I believe that.
Yeah.
And if it's... I don't know how IMAX that would be, but still, that seems like it would be overwhelming.
Yeah. What they really need to do is put a little wind machine in the theaters and, like, the...
Go see it, do the 4DX thing where it's like there's wind and water and dirt and like...
Yeah, that's the way to see that movie.
Smells.
With the wind, so you feel like you are going to fall.
There will be so much shit in that theater at the end.
Yeah.
Everyone's just...
And people were talking about, like, the seats being wet at the end of 50 Shades. Like... Like, people were making that joke.
I saw that movie.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. I'm going to record a review someday. Someday when I feel like doing it. I tried to record that review like 5 times.
And you just couldn't?
Yeah, it was like I just could never get succinct. It was like there were so many. It was one of those reviews. It was like some kind of weird like wave pool where I was like,
the further you get, the more you kind of slid back.
Yeah, and then you're like, but well, and then there's this, but and then this thing, and then like it just kept being that. But yeah, no, it's like or I always use that microcosm as like you start learning, and it's like if you're in America and you're learning about America, they're like the first thing is like, oh yeah, Christopher Columbus discovered America, and then time passes and they're like, oh yeah, Christopher Columbus, he was sailing for this queen and he was supposed to find blah blah blah, and then later on they're like, well, Christopher Columbus, like so you start.
He's
out
really
with,
found by the Vikings.
Yeah, and then you start out with this whole idea of like, oh, it's this guy and he's a pretty good dude, like. And then later on, it's like, well, he didn't even really find it, and he was kind of a dick, and he raped a lot of people. Like, he and his people kind of raped a lot of women and stole things and, like, introduced disease. And, like, he wasn't all that great of a guy. He just helped us get here.
Yeah.
Like, So, like, ideas are constantly being introduced and then refined. And then, society also continues to advance while you're doing that. So I feel like an idea... I feel like you'll only have a good grasp on an idea right now in the present, but it can always change.
And I guess maybe like you can kind of take comfort in the idea that it seems like the way things are working, it's no one person's job to get their brain into the space of complete ethical progress and finally attain that absolute social enlightenment. It's nobody's one job to get their brain there.
Yeah.
What instead is like you're a piece of the whole hive mind that is humankind getting there piece by piece, and then it's like your job is to be born, get the wrong idea, get further down the path to the right idea, and then die, and then the next person in the relay race starts ahead of you.
Yeah. That's strange. Ugh. I mean, as much as I don't love modern times. Like, I really don't.
It's not your favorite Chaplin?
No, I do like Modern Times. I like that film.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good one. I mean, Great Dictator's a good one. The Kid. Chaplin. But it's like the modern age gets me down, and I don't really feel at home in like modern times. A lot of modern stuff.
Are you feeling a lot of modern guilt?
Yeah, I don't know what I've done, but I feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that song is pretty apropos. Like,
Shouts out to Beck.
I do feel uptight when I walk in the city. I feel uptight when I'm at home. Like, there's something about modern times where it's like there's all this cool stuff around and there's all this connectivity, but it makes everything so kind of vast and noisy and visually loud and just sort of there's so many people screaming all the time and it's hard to listen to everything and there's so many things worth caring about and empathizing for, and just the world can kind of collapse in on you. However, as much as I sort of don't like and or feel at home in the now times, the hopeful side of me sort of feels like perhaps with all this massive, perhaps technology could, emphasis on could, unlock something or not save the world, but just sort of like, because everything is so much more connected and because, more and more ideas are sort of churning and more awareness is possible and you can get a better glimpse, because somebody can upload something that is their experience from some place that is completely different from yours, barring like, the most third world areas. And even those are more accessible now. It's like perhaps a happy byproduct of all this connectivity and constant access to news and information could sort of lead to, not a singularity, but just like, a betterness, a better understanding, a better perspective.
I try and have some faith in that because I'm thinking, if the world can support multiple people who are multimillionaires just playing video games all day, I'm pretty sure we can get to a place where it's like, everyone gets water, everyone gets, food, everyone gets the basic necessities met. And it's like, once you have all your basic necessities met, it's like, that takes, in like, once your basic necessities are for the most part guaranteed, like, that takes a lot of the pressure out of what you contribute back into the world.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't have to scrap to find your next meal, it's like, who knows what you can do for the rest of the planet.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of like what I wish
and that's,
would have. I just wish the world had a better sense of community.
Yeah. And then that's another thing of the magic of connectivity and communication, because it's like, maybe eventually the barriers will start breaking down, and when people from disparate cultures start talking to each other, and then that becomes the norm, that complete I guess almost in a way like kind of diffusion.
Yeah,
it's like eventually the regional cultural lines of I live in this area and we all view the world this way. I live in this area and we have this history and we view the world this way. It's like those lines will kind of start to get blurred, and we'll all get to a place where it's like that lensing effect where we all kind of have a different prescription of glasses to see the world through. Won't be the case anymore. Like, and this is a really interesting thing to me. It's like, native Japanese speakers, they can't distinguish green and blue as well as a native English speaker. Meanwhile, a native Russian speaker can distinguish between different shades of blue better than a native English speaker, because those languages have totally different words for discussing color.
Interesting.
And it's like, if you go way back in history, like the ancient Greeks didn't have a word for blue. So if you read a copy of the Iliad, the sea is described as the color of wine. The sky is described as the color of bronze.
Interesting.
But it's like, imagine a world where...
Maybe that guy was just colorblind.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, that could be it.
The sky is brown and the sea is red. Maybe he just had some fucked up cones and rods.
Maybe, or it could just be like. But I think like this was based on something. I think the guy who discovered this like Tridon's daughter, where for years and years and years he didn't expose her to the word or the idea of blue, and then at one point he asked her what color the sky was, and she was just like white.
Weird. Whoa.
For whatever reason, there's...
What is that, just the closest approximation, then? It's
basically, because it's like...
What does this remind you of that you are aware of?
Yeah. But I think it's like, if cultural differences and language differences can really warp your cognition, if we live in a world where there's that kind of complete diffusion of culture and language across the planet, then it's like we all... eventually we're all going to share in that same greater awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, it's like if the, if a Japanese speaker gets exposed to, like, the English breakdown of color after a while, eventually it's like, they should be able to start seeing the difference between green and blue, if, like,
yeah.
The native Russian speaker spends enough time with an English speaker, eventually the native English speaker will get the idea of the different shades of blue and be able to, distinguish them, and then the Russian speaker will understand that, these two things are so different in my mind, they're both under the banner of blue and blueness.
They're in a similar family in terms of hue.
There's
what is green in Japan? Just different blue?
There's one word for green and blue, and that's just kind of in their color wheel, so this has been described to me secondhand anyway.
Okay. All right.
And then it's like, I mean, like Mandarin Chinese is a tonal language. So the same, what to us is the same, like, three words, niyama. It's like, depending on how you inflect that can mean like a bunch of different things. From how are you to something about a horse. So it's like, so when you think about that, it's like, oh my God, like, native Mandarin speakers must be able to, like, they must be able to distinguish between, like, sounds way better than a native English speaker, shouldn't they? They have, like, way more practice at it, just straight from the cradle. It's like once you start learning your native language, you have to adapt to the cognitive tools it gives you.
I mean, we only have that in a very limited sense of, like, just certain words that are interchangeable for stuff, and then you have to kind of pay attention to the tone of voice, but they're very situations oriented.
The weather.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're not in that situation enough to really be astute for that kind of a thing.
So, I mean, when people say it's like,
I feel like English is this weird language where, like,
it's such a hodgepodge.
It's a hodgepodge. There's so many words, but then occasionally it'll just be like, we didn't think of a different word. Let's just repurpose that word. It's kind of this looks like batter, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, I know we're not playing baseball, but let's call this batter. Like, sorry, this is a weird example. Like,
Yeah, and that's also, you look into history of, like, how many times English tried to, like, add new letters that we don't have anymore.
And we've taken some away, because I can't remember who told me. like if you see old shop signs and they say like "ye old this," it's like that's not a Y. Like that letter was supposed to mimic the th sound.
Yeah, the letter was called Thorn, and we did away with it because basically it's like those signs. I think those signs were like misprints or something. It's like the Y was there because there were, for whatever reason, there were non-English speaking printers and non-English speaking woodcutters, and they didn't recognize the Thorn letter, so the closest they could approximate it to was a Y.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so we get ye old, and so it's like, oh, it's supposed to be a thorn.
Gotcha. Thorn, oaken shield. Yeah. Nice.
Good job.
Thanks, man.
GJ, bro. But
GJ, bro.
So it's like to wind back a far ways. It's like I think the big difference when people talk about social justice or PC or whatever is like pay attention to the version that is giving the voice to the person who doesn't have a voice versus the version that is shutting people without a voice out and just kind of expecting them to suck it up and toe the regular party line.
Program.
Yeah, like the whole colorblindness thing is like, well, now you're taking away from, you know, ethnic and racial identities, and you're expecting, it's like you're telling people that, oh, don't tell me about your experience because we all have just one experience. I don't care about what's different about your day-to-day life. Don't.
Let us not be different.
Yeah, it's like, don't upset or rock the boat because if you talk about race, then you're stirring the pot and you're a racist. You're race baiting.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, just give the voice to the person who has the different racial experience and, you know, hear them out.
Yeah.
And then there's that version versus, oh, you're trying to kill my freedom of speech. It's like, no, I'm just saying you're an asshole for, like, calling this person or that person a tranny or a science experiment because they're trying to do what we all try to do in some capacity. It's like make our outside more reflective of our inside.
Well, those things are the things that seem to be truly colorblind. It's like anyone can be an asshole. Like even if you are on the disadvantaged side of things, like you can still be an asshole, and there can be great people who are in the privileged camp. And it's all about what you do with that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that so many arguments can get diluted, because assholery itself isn't identified.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. But, it's like and then people are saying it's like, and then, like, we mentioned Gamergate at the beginning of this whole talk, and it's like, no, the problem with Gamergate isn't that they were, like, trying to criticize what was going on in the video game industry, because
it's just that Richard Nixon didn't want you to play those 40 seconds of the Orange Box 3.
Yeah. Richard Nixon doesn't want Half-Life 3 to get released.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
I saw a meme somebody posted. They're on one of those planets. They're on the one planet where time moves really slow. Oh, no. It's not. It was in the same thread, but they're on the planet in Interstellar where time moves much, for like every hour spent here, it's 7 years on Earth or something like that. And I think the caption read, "Here we will wait for Half-Life 3."
All right, I get that. That's funny.
Right. Anyway.
I saw another comic. It was a SpongeBob clip where the faces were replaced with video game logos, and so it's like one guy like this fish character with Fallout 4 for a face says, it's like, I'm getting my sequel, and then Half-Life 3, who is like, SpongeBob has Half-Life 3 for a face. He's like, or no, he has Half-Life 2 for a face. He's like, great, I'm getting mine soon too.
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
Are they even, like, is that a thing that's being...
They have not announced anything outside of, we're working on it, but like months ago, maybe even years ago, they said, oh yeah, we're working on it, but we're not at a place to say anything yet.
Oh, okay, but there at least is the vague notion that it's an idea.
Yeah. I would think it would be hilarious if, like, every time there was an article in the gaming press where, like, oh yeah, Valve, this Valve person confirms that they're working on Half-Life 3. They mentioned there was a sudden rummage. They suddenly exited the room, rummaged around. There was a loud clanging from beyond the door. They re-entered and they're like, yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it.
They're not really. They're playing Jenga.
They're just playing Jenga in that room. The Half-Life 3 room is just a Jenga hall.
I want to make some kind of bullshit, like... If anything I did in this life was sardonic, I would make a really bullshit-ass website where every day there is a new report on Half-Life 3 and just have it be a nothing report. Just like
just fluff of like, yeah, they confirmed that it is a thing.
Because so much nothing gets reported on now, and then like reports have to go back because like, oh no, we're not doing this thing, and now we are doing this thing, now we are not again. It's like I just want to make a website that is only articles, like different articles about the same thing. Like, just like. Or like
maybe there's like a website like that's just like Half-Life 3 non-reportage watch where like aggregates every time some outlet reports on Half-Life 3 being in development in some vague sense.
That would be much easier. Yeah. Or just do that for a Tool album. Just like, Maynard sneezed today. He's still alive. New Tool album. Like,
you know.
Congratulations to Maynard on your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Good job, Maynard.
Good
you
job.
did it.
Jiu-jitsus.
Congratulations on your wine, too.
Oh, yeah. And your new hip.
Yeah.
I read a lot of Maynard James Keenan news lately. Gamergate.
Like I mentioned Gamergate before because it's like the problem with Gamergate wasn't like they were criticizing the video games industry. Like, the video games industry, like any other industry, deserves a lot of fucking criticism.
Yeah.
But it's like, they weren't criticizing the video games industry. They were trying to destroy... They were, like, trying to destroy a girl based on, like, slander that was posted by, like, an abusive ex.
Oh. Ooh. That was bad, too.
And it's like... And there was a lot of anger that basically women got a voice in the video games industry and women, quote-unquote, women's issues got a big voice in the video games industry. And it's like... That's the thing. It's like, you don't... And there's this whole thing in the Gamergate world. It was like, no, don't, when you're criticizing or reporting on a game, don't take the social justice warrior standpoint. Don't tell me about how it handles this or that or the other. I'm just like,
if this game is going to bother to have a story.
Yeah, the story is, like, worthy of criticism. It's like... there's a difference between criticizing someone's speech and saying and trying to destroy their right to say it. Yeah. Like someone saying, "Hey, Daniel Tosh's rape jokes were shitty, and Daniel Tosh's rape jokes are bad, and Daniel Tosh is an asshole for making a rape joke." That's different from Daniel Tosh should be burned at the stake.
Yeah,
one is reasonable, and the other one isn't.
Yeah,
and the first one, is reasonable.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't even a joke. Like,
yeah, he just like pointed out a woman. He made a joke about rape. A woman says that's not funny to him because it's like she'd gone through that experience, and it's like she's probably sick of hearing something really damaging and really hurtful being joked about by a smug guy like Daniel Tosh.
Yeah.
She spoke up, and Daniel Tosh fired back with, "Wouldn't it be funny if she got raped by 5 guys right now?" to a whole audience full of people, which is like. It's like, that just, you're the guy with the microphone everyone paid to see, but it's like, if you're going to have the platform and if you're going to have the power, it's like, Peter Parker, use that shit responsibly.
Yeah. With marginal power and some reach comes still responsibility.
Yeah. But that's like, and my viewpoint on people in the media is like, you can't have that shit both ways. You can't say, they're just jokes, they don't mean anything. It's like, well, if they're just jokes and they don't mean anything, say them to yourself in the privacy of your own home. You don't need to become a millionaire based on jokes that you say don't mean anything. If you're being given money and prestige and a platform and celebrity and status and attention for what you have to say, then A, what you have to say better be worth saying, and B, what you have to say is going to be open to interpretation and open to analysis and open to criticism. And that goes for everyone. It's like, and it's weird because we don't seem to exist in this world of like, well, I can have my opinion, but you don't get to have your opinion about my opinion. It's like, because then the world just becomes a mess.
Yeah.
It's like, no, sorry, sadly, the way in which the world works is if you're going to voice your opinion in the public forum, other people get to talk about your opinion.
Yeah.
And then other people get to talk about their opinion of your opinion. And as much as it sounds like we're going to get into this recursive Ouroboros spiral of commentary on commentary on commentary, like that's just the way the world has to work.
Yeah.
You don't get to say, no, at this point you can't say anything about what's being said.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, I feel like the fame machine now further fucks with, like, further dilutes that part, because it's like, I guess it probably would have always been this way, but it's like, because being famous is this nebulous goal now, where it's just like, see, it's like more and more people can just aspire not to be a good this job or that job. I just want to be famous. So, like, I feel like that further degrades the consideration for, like, responsibility that comes with those things. And so, like, most people just get caught up in, like, oh, lots of people can see me now. But, like, you know, when arguably that's the most important time to check in with the world around you. And you should always check in with the world around you and see what effect you're having on, you know, your microcosm and the world in general. And as your microcosms get bigger, you still need to keep checking in, you know.
It's also, I mean, then we get into the world of, like, how are you supposed to apologize in the public forum?
There's no way to, like, I feel like at that point you just gotta say whatever you think is natural, and like, whatever feels right to you, just say that. And
because it's like, so many times it sounds like in any case like that, someone will say something shitty, they'll get flack for it, and then it's like when they apologize, the apology sounds like, well, this apology sounds like it was made by committee. Yeah. Whereas what you said before sounded genuine, so it's like, you know.
And it's timing, too.
Yeah, it's like you kind of got to act in good faith.
Yeah. It's all weird because, like, you know, offensiveness is such a marketable thing now. And so, like, you know, for as offensive as anything is, you know, this sort of public at large loves outrage and, like, offensive things, and watching those stories play out.
And the thing is, the sad thing is, like, the outrage factor is being used to kind of, like, shut down the people who are being outraged. It's like, you know, people are seeing, you know, most recent example is, you know, McKinney. You know, if someone's being angry, it's like, this is horrible, this police officer deserves to be fired, someone else is going to be firing back, like, you're going to demand that this guy is fired, you're the real monster and all this. I'm just thinking, and then suddenly it's like, now you have someone that has this complete, like, you know, dismantled view of what it boils down to. You know, a cop shouldn't be doing parkour rolls on the ground and, like, throwing a 14-year-old girl into the dirt.
No.
And, like, pointing a gun at her. It's like, that stuff, under most circumstances, shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, no. That's a story that still blows my mind.
And today that police officer quit, and so hopefully his parkour career takes off.
Yeah.
This isn't a shitty joke, but it says the gun-toting, parkour-rolling, teen assaulting McKinney police just quit to pursue his career as a Mirror's Edge character. It's like, oh, it's parkour and he's got a gun. It's like, this guy.
See, I haven't seen that video yet. Like, I haven't watched it. I've just heard the periphery.
Yeah.
And there's weird stuff going on right now, man.
And it's like, there's got to be as it sucks to say, there's got to be at some point where it's like, be outraged, but find a way to temper the outrage into something productive. Because it's like, as much as it sucks, if you're in the right and this is wrong and you're angry about that, if you get too angry, like, people will use that to think that you don't have a valid case.
Well, and getting to, like, I feel like you should almost never get too angry.
Yeah.
And the problem is now things thrive so much on instant reaction. We need a statement now, you know, and it's like, sometimes, you know, anger is not the best frame of mind to act in. I mean, the proper amount of anger, sure, but, like, outrage is a bad place to make decisions.
And the thing is, it's like,
to really process
things. But at the same time, it's like, then you look at, and to be fair, I'm not saying, I'm not going to get on that tangent of, like, for instance, oh, the kids in Baltimore shouldn't be rioting. It's like, the riot isn't like a should or shouldn't thing. The riot is like, that shit happens when people are pushed to the margin like that.
Well, yeah, and that's a big situation.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's outrage. I'm not saying outrage is a bad thing. I'm just like, there's so much of it everywhere, and it's like if you collect and you're like, you know what, there's a whole system at work that is fundamentally flawed and fundamentally, oppressive to certain people. Like, sometimes action is what is required.
Yeah.
Or at least is justifiable. You just got to point it in the right direction.
It's just a matter of the, making sure the action is effective.
Yeah.
And
it's like outrage in and of itself isn't a bad thing. You just got to be smart about it like you do anything.
If someone is denying that there's a problem in the first place, of course they're going to deny that you have any right to be mad about the problem.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, but at the end of the day, it's not a zero-sum game, because if it was a zero-sum game, nothing would have changed over the course of all of human history.
Stuff changes it.
Yeah. It does feel, and I don't know, it's like we're both young guys, we haven't been around to see enough cycles of it, but it does feel like these past few years have been like a spurt, And maybe it's like
been some tumult.
Yeah, it's like this does feel like in the world of like human societal evolution, it's like this is we're in a period where there's some noticeable collected growing pains.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly seems like things are happening. And I mean, like, across different boards, it's like there's more and more attention being drawn to police conduct and stuff like that. And there's more, like, the transgender community has come to a at least, just in the public, sphere, like, there's a lot of prominence. And, like, I have several friends now who are transitioning that, like, I just had no idea, like, before... Yeah. Who are transitioning or at least embracing, their preferred gender identity, and it's 5 or 6 years ago, I would have had no idea, and now it's
I'd be really interested to see if, since the transgender thing has been going on for a while in small doses, but now it's like becoming way more visible. I'm wondering if this is going to, because I mean, there's the very binary type of being transgender, where it's like, in the case of Caitlyn Jenner, it's like Caitlyn Jenner was assigned male at birth, so lived as a man, and now it's lived as a woman. But it's like, I remember when Lana Wachowski was coming out after kind of completing her transition, which she was saying, it's like, listen, the problem wasn't me. The problem wasn't that I was born into the wrong body. The problem is that we live in this society where it's like, there's this very restrictive duality that's kind of prescribed and forced on everybody, and I'm doing what I have to do to be able to just survive in that. But ideally, and I guess in essence, it's like the and I could be misinterpreting this, but it's like, it felt like the implication was like, ideally, speaking for Lana Wachowski, ideally I wouldn't have had to do this in the first place, because it's like, being born with a penis shouldn't have been like the be-all, end-all tell of like my type of human being I'm supposed to be in the first place.
It's like, should penis necessarily mean, oh, dude?
Yeah.
It's like, without that, is there a version of society where, like, you can have very effeminate, like, by sex you are a man, like, you have those, maybe we could get a different word, but it's like, you have the male genitalia, but you're not expected to be dude. You're not expected to fit that binary or that archetype. So yeah, it's like, now that's an interesting thing. I haven't thought about that. It's like the transition to becoming a woman, is that partly like because it's so deeply ingrained into cultural gender and cultural aesthetics. It's like, oh, that is a woman. That is the feminine, the more dominantly feminine personality physically manifests to look like that, And
it's like, you look at cultures around the world where it's like there is a quote unquote third gender. It's not it's not male. It's not boy. It's not girl. And usually that third gender is
squirrel.
It's squirrel. It's squirrel girl.
Squirrel girl.
Yeah. There's only one in every society.
It's Skrillex.
Yeah. It's Skrillex. No, but it's like, the societies that have like a third, like, normal, like, codified gender identity. There's, man, woman, and then this third thing that, the biology doesn't even matter, or the biology is usually, it's born a man, but it acts this other role, or it's born a woman, and it acts with this other role.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm wondering, and I'm kind of hoping, because it's like, it's something that is so, it's something that exists, but it is so, again, like, it's like, saying transgender is like wildly way more, like this kind of like rote binary version of transgender is like so much more easy to get, like, your average person to wrap their head around. It's like, no. This person was born a man, but mentally, psychologically, they're a woman. Or no, this person was born a woman, but mentally, psychologically, they're a man. And it's this opposite flipping between the psychology and the physiology. And, it's like, that's way easier to get somebody to wrap their head around, other than, the whole thing about, like, what a man is and what a woman is that you've grown up, like, believing as, like, the pillar of human existence. It's actually kind of bullshit, and there are people that, for whatever reason, their mental health and their mental status is not able to play along with that kind of bullshit game, and so it's like they kind of have to live in a way that we don't have an existing normal popular model for, and if you saw them on the street, you would kind of be confused. It's like, they're like trans women and like trans feminine people that basically say, people try and like say, oh, you're so pretty and you really pass for a woman really well. And it's like, yeah, because I have to, because if I went around looking like I feel, which is this kind of like combination and this sort of spectral displacement of qualities that we kind of arbitrarily associate as being male or female qualities, it's like I would get harassed and I would get beaten and I would get assaulted and all this bad shit would fall to me. So I have to kind of like reduce my personhood to just the other set of rules.
Yeah,
I can't break the rules or pick and choose individual rules. I just have to pick the others, an entirely different set of rules, but I'm still restricted and I'm still constrained.
One minds are weird too, because it's like, everybody grows up, or at least, in a Western society around here, it's like everybody grows up with those, that's in your starter kit. It's like, from very early age, you're just taught like, oh, yeah, boy, girl, like
blue, pink.
It's always there, so...
Blue, pink, truck, doll, whatever. It's like that dichotomy is like being forced in your face from... like the moment you're in the crib. So
at a certain point, it's like, it does become maddening when you finally kind of realize your identity. But at the same time, it always makes me curious, because those aesthetics and those things are just there. They're part of the primordial ooze of your mind, And it's like these male, female, these are like since the beginning of recorded history. It's like we've had those genders, it seems like, and then all of history is sort of interpreted with those in effect. So it's like it's always there. So I feel like right now we're taking the steps toward, perhaps maybe one day down the line we would have a more sort of broad spectrum of gender identities or whatever, or not even need genders anymore.
It was just, you wouldn't need like gender identity, like the gender would just kind of be, gender would be a word like personality. Everyone's kind of got a different one.
Yeah, exactly. Because it seems reasonable to sort of assert that, like, on the mixing board of life, everyone has a different set of levels in a different tip of the scale for masculinity versus femininity.
It's like, it's always weird to me when you hear like a very like straight hetero dude being like, it's like, oh yeah, I got in touch with my feminine side because I baked something today. And I'm just thinking, it's like, it just feels so like dichotomous and almost like kind of this contradiction in terms like, you're saying...
Because cooking is for women.
Yeah, it's like, no, not even that, but just like, I'm a man and I'm a manly man and I'm a doodly dude and whatever, but...
I don't know, it's this kitchen. What is this, bro?
But... today, this mystical thing called my feminine side existed for a moment, and just like no longer than is allowed by normal people rules.
I didn't bake these cookies. My feminine Patronus baked.
Exactly. It's like this need to like. It's like, dude, you baked shit. Like, what is?
It's an art. It's art and science. Like,
and I'm glad.
Happy birthday.
Because I mean, I'm glad that it seems like kids these days don't have that issue. And I know it's like neither of us are very old at all, but
Feel old.
Yeah, but not very wise.
Yeah. Well, you're wiser than I am.
What?
Yeah.
Shut up.
I'm wiser than I am.
Shut up, dude.
I get around you, or I get around like Charlie. You guys will meet Charlie someday.
Yeah, Charlie will be a guest soon.
Charlie will be a guest. I get around you guys, and I'm like, man, I gotta read more books and like touch the world more. You know, it's like I feel like the best sort of intelligent thing I have any kind of a grip on is just the stuff I've picked up on, just observing the world around and kind of processing that.
I mean, I feel like that puts you ahead of the game because it's not like you're fighting some preconceived notion. You're just receptive to just what you see naturally, which is better than a lot of people.
I guess I always just wish, like, when discussions happen, then I feel very much sort of I have like a disadvantage in terms of, like, you know, not as aware of like the more the recorded elements of discussion, like to jump in, you know, to know the terminology, to know the history of things, you know. It's like I can connect on like human experience philosophy, but, you know, to grab the necessary terms and the necessary context, it's like I need to branch out and inform myself better.
I mean, I'm still feeling like I'm just kind of like still battling in the dark. All I know is like I'm trying to pick up the words as I go along, but when I kind of look at the broad scope of things, I know that all I really know for certain is things aren't quite right, and I have more tools than a lot of people just because, you know, the things being quite not right is skewed a little bit favorably in my direction based on a few things I have.
Yeah.
But I want to some extent, do some good in the world. So it's like I'm trying to pick up the words and the rules of the road as I go along, and hopefully find some way to take the tools I have and put that into making things more right.
Yeah. You know, it's that to grossly oversimplify. It's just, you know, a sort of it's just a vested effort in like leaving things a little nicer than you found them. Like,
yeah.
You know, which would be a nice way to approach the world. It's like, you know, maybe things were pretty cool when I got here, or maybe things were really fucked up when I got here. But if I leave and things are at least a little better since I was there, like maybe I helped somebody out, or maybe, you know, or just, you know, contributed in any way to something benevolent or better, you know, like that would be a good thing. You know? It's like that would be a thing to strive for.
It's like, I mean, straight white male privilege or straight white male social capital, whatever you want to say, it's like it's a pretty powerful and pretty useful kind of force in the world, and it's almost like, you know, if this was a sci-fi movie, there's the band of rebels that are trying to break down the walls of the evil empire, so everybody outside the evil empire and everybody inside the evil empire can kind of like be free. And I'm somebody that grew up inside the evil empire and, you know, had like a big gun attached to my body, and it's like I kind of want to walk into the rebel base and point to this big gun attached to my body and be like, hey, can you guys use this? Is this you guys want? Would this be useful?
It's like it's like you got unplugged. You know, like, well, shit, I do have all this stuff.
Yeah.
Do you guys
need this?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, where should I point this?
Yeah, exactly. Just help me out here. Like, help me aim.
Yeah.
You are Max kneeling down and being like, all right, you can use my shoulder, but you take the shot. Like,
yeah.
You're clearly a better shooter than I am. So there you go.
Yeah. It's like you have the sight and I have the sturdy, rock hard physique.
Yeah.
That's perfect to use as a bipod.
That's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
It's like,
I gotta see Fury Road again.
Yes!
I do.
It's that moment. It's like, I just love that. There's so many moments of it. That moment where he shot a couple times, you watch him put it together, you're like, you watch him have that moment where he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna hit him. Yes.
Yeah.
Please. Like, Like, it's more important that this goes through than, you know, my getting a victory by doing it myself. It's like, the greater victory of this is we shoot the crazy bullet farmer. Yeah,
it's like what the effort and the goal needs right now is the best person for the job, and the best person for the job happens to be, you know, Furiosa. Yeah. Going back to that bit from Silicon Valley, it's like I think we should hire more women, and then the defense of, well, we should hire whoever's best for the job, and it's like, okay, if you're hiring whoever's best for a job, your room should not be 100% men. Yeah, because I mean, really unlikely that whatever it is, it's like 100% white men are 100% the best people at 100% of this thing. Yeah, there has to be, you know, some woman who is like better than a significant number of men at the thing. Yeah, it's like when they have that, the conversation recurs when they actually interview. Like, there's this girl who comes in and they're like, yeah, no, she's fucking great at coding, and and the conversation awkwardly comes back up because that's Jared. You know, it's just like he says this weird dweeby thing about like, and you're a woman, like, and she's like, yeah, so, and he's like, not that it matters, but it would be nice to have a woman in the office, but it doesn't matter that you're a woman, you're just the best person for the job, but it's nice that you're also a woman. Yeah. It just becomes this awkward thing. Yeah, it becomes the awkward thing, especially like adding, and this is the obvious part, but it's like, if this guy says, oh, you're the best person in the job, and you're a woman, it's like, oh, great, so you guys want something to look at and leer at while you're on the job. It's like, no, we genuinely are coming from... We just want to diversify. Like, yeah, we really want to come from like a good like place with this, but the show is about coders, and they're not known for their social graces. Yeah, exactly. Although, yeah. When they replaced, because the guy who played Peter Gregory died, they replaced his character with a woman, and she is wicked funny to me. Cool. I don't know the actress's name, but the woman who runs his company now, who like takes over for him, and her because Peter Gregory, that character, is like, has this sort of social awkwardness nirvana of like, he's clearly like this, you know, rich, brilliant guy, but just has no socials at all, and he kind of appears as though like he kind of seems like an alien almost. And the woman they got isn't doing an impression of him, but she has a similar like sort of weirdness towards the world. This very sort of it's really hard to describe, but it's like it's this perfect pitch strangeness that's like, you're so funny. Like, I like to point something out. Yeah. So it's like a lot of people that like are talking about like, oh, I hate the PC thing, and I hate that it's invading everything, and everything is getting ruined because it's becoming this big, you know, topic about like, you know, people's rights and things like that. It's just like, buy a Mac. Yeah. Exactly. Buy whatever computer that works for you. Yeah. Buy the best computer for the job, and that computer might be a PC. Yeah, you know, that's another thing. Is like, over the years, I've really mellowed out. I'm like, everyone's like, what phone should I get? And then like wars start on comment threads, and I'm just like, hey, I've used at least Android and iPhone. They were both good. Yeah. I had a good experience, but just you get the phone that you like, or get the computer that you like, or that does the thing you need it to do, and let's all calm down. I recently switched from a Droid to an iPhone. I would, you know, if I found like there was a really killer Droid out there and I was in need of a new phone, I might pick up the new Droid. But I got the iPhone. This is my first iPhone. Yeah. And I'm actually really liking it. And it helps because it's like, for my purposes and a lot of the stuff I'm had to go through, it's like there have been more times where I've had to ask, oh yeah, do they have that for Droid? More than I've had to ask, oh, do they have that for iPhone recently? Because like iPhone is, as much as it sucks that there's somebody with a monopoly, iPhone has like the ubiquity factor. Yeah. Well, and I mean, you know, nothing, at least for my purpose, I don't want this to become an iPhone commercial, but for my purpose, like in using it, I'm like, yeah, for my purposes, like, for the most part, this is super smooth. I don't need a ton of things, and it's got the stuff I need in a way that I enjoy using, and it's easy for me to use. Like, and it interacts with the other stuff that you had. It plays nice with you stuff you already had well. Yeah. But I want to say, it's like people were saying, the problem with I hate politically correctness bullshit. I hate the social justice warrior bullshit. It invades stuff that's just supposed to be fun and whatever. But it's like, the stuff that you're liking, chances are some aspect of it is like shutting out big swaths of people who aren't you.
If you're playing basketball and your ball says, I hate black people, like, maybe you should get a new basketball or redesign your basketball. It's like, now we can have fun because your basketball doesn't say some horrible slur on the side.
And it's like and it's like, for instance, and it's like you didn't notice that your basketball said, I hate black people on it because, you just want to play basketball and you love basketball so much, and you didn't, and, you as a white person just dealt with the fact that the basketball said, I hate black people, and didn't read into it.
See, whereas
there are a whole bunch of people that can't play. There are a whole bunch of black people that can't play basketball in this weird hypothetical world of black people who can't play basketball.
Sorry, well, they can. They're just like, it's going to be a really conflict. It's like, why would I want to play basketball with the I hate black people basketball? Like, or this game has become hostile to me for no good reason. Like,
yeah, I'm trying to figure out like a basketball that may
be a terrible metaphor.
It's a horrible metaphor, and I'm trying to think. Maybe it's a hilariously janky wants to be. It's like this metaphor is a baby gazelle, firstborn, trying to stand up, and it's got a few false starts under its belt.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way we can tie this racist basketball to Donald Sterling somehow.
It's big. Yeah. So you're the Clippers.
Yeah.
No, but it's like basketball as an antecedent for video games. It's like basketball in a video game neither is bad.
Yeah.
But if your basketball says I hate black people on it, that's a prominent part of your game, and if you should change that.
Yeah, and if say 60 and if 60% of the basketballs on the market all say I hate black people on it,
or I hate women,
or I hate women, or I hate gays, or anything like that. It's like you're shutting out huge sections of people from doing something like playing basketball.
Well, it seems weird because my reaction, I was like, somebody came to me and was like, hey, dude, your basketball is really offensive to all the women I know. Like, it's just like, sorry, that kind of janked up that point. But it's like if somebody came to me and was like, hey, this thing that you are really into is super, is oppressive to people. My first instinct wouldn't be to get mad about it. I would be bummed. Like that would be sad to me. Like that's like, oh no. Like I don't want to. I don't want this thing I like to be oppressive to anybody or disregarding of anybody. And then how can I fix that? My reaction would not be like fuck you.
Yeah.
Because play basketball. Like.
And it's also, it's also maybe there's this whole thing of factionality, and it's like maybe it's like we're so suckered in by the identity politics of the shit we buy and the shit we like. It's like people were at each other's throats when the Mac and PC wars were going on. It's like it's like, dude, just go with the computer you like.
Or at a certain point, and hopefully you get to a point where you look back and you're like, man, there's so many more important things.
Exactly.
Just in your daily, my day,
So it's like people are like, oh, you're insulting this thing I like, but it's like I spent all this money on this thing I like, and I'm so invested in this thing like, and for you to insult it is insulting me. It's like, no,
please, no, don't tie your identity to.
Yeah.
A computer or a video game.
And you got to be able to be critical of the stuff you like. Okay, for instance, there's a video game called Dishonored, and there's a lot that's really cool about Dishonored.
The steampunk one?
Yeah, it's vaguely steampunk. The art style is gorgeous. The mechanics of it are really tight and really well wound, and it's really mechanically fun. It's a really cool, gorgeous game. The story is kind of nonsensical, and the characters are very thinly written, and the portrayal of female characters and the way in which you can interact with female characters in Dishonored is kind of gross at times and kind of icky, and not in a really explicit way, but just kind of in a subtle subtextual way. I'm still able to say, yeah, I think it was bought as a gift for me, but I'm still able to say I've played Dishonored. There are things about it that I really like, but I'm still able to look at it with a critical eye and say there are things about it that are really lacking, things about it that are really kind of gross.
I mean, this is an extreme example, but like that's sort of been my experience. Again, I'm the weirdo with the Human Centipede movies, but like watching all like. There are a lot of things that I get out of those for some reason. Like there are things I like about that experimental, like you know, you watch those movies for a very different reason than most movies, but especially with the sequels, it's like there are moments. There are a lot of things I really like in those movies, and there are certain things where I'm like, I would have taken if it was my movie, I would have taken that out. I just don't like this sequence.
Yeah,
and it's about part of those is like it's about your barriers, but like. There are...
And I guess it's only kind of par for the course that the guy who's going to make the Human Centipede concept is going to put stuff in it that's also, like, gross and nasty on other levels.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's why I always say, it's like, if you're going to watch... Everyone always asks me about it, and for some reason it seems like the piece of advice is, like, if you're going to watch one of those movies, just know who you are before you go in. Like, know yourself.
Yeah.
Because, like, don't watch them too young. Because, like, there are things, there's humor in all of them. There are things that I find interesting in all of them. But there are, like I said, are certain moments where I'm like, yeah, I did not need that. That is not cool. Like, which is, like, that's a microcosm. It's not the mainstream. It's arguably the most niche-y thing possible. But even across the board, it's like, with video games, comic books, like, these things are all... There are so many great things about them, but they're also really problematic, especially in terms of like race and gender politics.
Yeah. To say that something has an issue or is problematic or is kind of like gross in a the film world has been able to say for decades now. It's like, yeah, D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation is really important, and it is a historically important film from a formalist standpoint. But it's horribly racist.
Yeah.
What it espouses is really repugnant. But formally, and as far as like what it did to the way in which cinema is made, is still important, and we still need to occasionally study it and say academic things about it.
Well, that seems to be a troublesome aspect of a lot of things, because it's. A lot of reaction happens to the fact that certain things are there versus like context. It's like, again, it's Birth of a Nation is about Klansmen.
Yeah,
but it's like you said, it is an important text. It's important for the context of cinema as a whole. Like your average moviegoer, like maybe don't, but.
And meanwhile, it's like,
uncomfortable things have shaped society.
And, I mean, it's like, even to this day, people still talk about, like, what a wonderful classic, say, Gone with the Wind is. The message of Gone with the Wind is basically, it's like, look how horrible, look what abolitionism did to Scarlett O'Hara. This poor, rich, white woman now has to work for her keep the way in which, slaves did, and how horrible, like,
woe is...
Yeah, it's like Gone with the Wind has a scene where it's like a fat cat freeman is riding on a carriage, and he's like smoking a big pipe, and he's in this big roly-poly-oly suit, and it's like, you're supposed to hate the freedman. And I'm like, this guy was like under the lash not that long ago in the story of this movie. You're trying to make me hate him? The hell's wrong with you?
Wow, times.
Yeah. And, like, people are still, people still broadly say, oh, Gone with the Wind is such a wonderful American classic. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, exalt it all you want. Don't tell me it doesn't have this really ugly shit at its core.
Yeah, well, at least nowadays I think it's easy, unless you're in, like, an academic setting, I think it's easy for a lot of people to be, like, because Gone with the Wind is so ubiquitous.
Yeah.
People are just like, oh, yeah, Gone with the Wind. And then it's really easy to almost just not think about that stuff. It's like, because nobody, like, not a lot of people watch Gone with the Wind all the time.
Yeah.
And it's usually...
I mean, how many people over 70 watch Turner Classic Movies?
Hey, man, I get down. Dude, Robert Osborne, Ben Mankiewicz.
Oh, yeah.
These are my boys. So...
Yeah.
Big suit. Big idea.
Big suit. Big guy. All in all, I think the moral of the story is stuff.
Yeah, things.
I think the moral of the story is at some point, as much as it makes people uncomfortable, the only way in which anything's going to move forward is like the people who. The only way in which things are going to move forward is if we critically look at where people's voices are shut out, and then we open up the doors and the corridors and let the people whose voices who have been historically shut out have their say, and don't try and dismiss it. And yes, critique people's statements all you want, but accept that everyone may have a good point with what they're saying.
Yeah. Because, arguably you shouldn't just accept every point that's given to you, but you should examine things. Be open. Because, I don't know, it's a scary thought. It's like, wouldn't you, if you had the wrong idea, it's a very scary thought. It's even scary to me. It's like, if you have the wrong idea, ultimately, you probably want to know. Like,
yeah.
As much as that might be hard to swallow, it's like you want to get the right idea. So, you got to be open to contrary, I guess. Something that's not quite what is being pumped onto your radar.
And it's not going to take away your fun, and it's not going to take away your ability to just live your life. Because listen, we've been going on for over 2 hours right now. And
I like how we sat down today and we're gonna all right, let's just
let's do a mini-sode.
Let's do a mini-sode, and this is the longest episode we've recorded.
Yeah, it's like, we've been drawn on for a little over 2 hours about, for a big extent we've been talking social justice stuff, but for every little bit in which we talk social justice stuff, we still joked.
Yeah, we still had fun.
We still had fun. We still were able to make poop jokes and giggle and go off on little wacky tangents. And
remember, let's just look back at the end of every one of these episodes and be like, remember, we had the poop dildo?
The poop dildo.
There were a lot of poop jokes today. It was like getting shot by a turd.
Yeah.
It was the whole Jankum saga.
The Jankum saga. Listen, if we could try and take a critical eye towards issues of tolerance and issues of representation for underrepresented and underprivileged people in popular culture, and still go off on poop jokes, I think that goes to show, being on the right side of history or being on the right side of ethics does not prevent you from being able to have whatever goofy fun you want to have.
Well, yeah, and you don't just have to burn everything that isn't directly in line with the highest pinnacles of social justice. It's it's more important that you understand. It's more important that you. It's like you don't have to trash your copy of Dishonored. Just be aware, and hopefully, the next game that comes out will maybe fix some of those issues.
Yeah, and hope the next Dishonored game maybe won't have those problems.
Yeah,
okay, for instance, and it's also understand a lot of the art that you consume these days is really designed by a huge committee.
Yeah,
it's you go through. This is really interesting to me. It's because we talked about Fallout earlier today. You go through
one guy makes the whole game.
Yeah, you go through
his name's Chris. He lives in my house.
He lives right in the house. He's got a big suit.
Big suit. Big video game.
Big video game. It's Fallout New Vegas. It's every little individual area and every little individual hub and every little individual quest is designed by a separate person for the most part. There's a lot of overlap here and there, but for the most part, it's a huge team of people are designing huge chunks of this game.
So it's kind of like a writer's room where it's you've got the showrunner being okay, here's the overarching story. Now you go off and you write,
your episode.
Megaton episode. You go off and write the Rivet City episode.
I don't know the structure and how those things are written, but I assume it's something similar to that.
Yeah.
But you go through Fallout New Vegas, it's you can go into, say, all right, there's a casino on the New Vegas Strip that is also a brothel. And the whole thing about that casino and that brothel is that it's seedy and it's ugly, and the guys who run it are trying to emulate the pre-war mafia, and it's gross. And there's no way in which you can change the management or affect the management of that casino where somebody ugly and gross and kind of monstrous isn't in power.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's also a brothel, so it's like there are a lot of working girls and working guys throughout that place. The majority of what you see are working girls that are really in ugly situations.
Yeah.
And it's gross, and you're showing kind of like, you know, a lot of like women in kind of like subservient and subservient and repressed and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of exploited and bondagey, you know, situations. Not bondagey as in like sexual bondage, like bondage as in your freedom is being repressed,
infringed upon.
Yeah. And that's in that one casino. But if you walk around the entire wasteland that encompasses like sections of Nevada and California in that game, you're going to find plenty of women who are self-determining, plenty of women who are active, plenty of women who are free. You can even like I think one of the companions that can be like your right-hand guy who assists you in battle is openly gay. And like where he comes from, that's okay. And he's able to have that be a part of who he is as a human being without really any repercussions. So it's like, you know, just because the game has this ugly place where you see a lot of women in a horrible situation, and it's like supposed to be kind of like cheap edginess or cheap titillation if you want to see that way. It's like, oh, you know, you're showing like poor, sad, you know, prostitutes as a way to kind of like leer at women but feel like morally vindicated because you feel bad for their situation even though you're still leering at them and you know, indulging in this Madonna horror complex, yada yada yada, whatever. Or you could be like, oh, this is, you know, and then there are people who are like sex work activists so saying, oh, this is a horrible depiction of sex work where it's like the only women who are engaged in this practice are not doing it, they have no agency, and it's like, you know, there are plenty of issues from way different angles that you can take with that casino with the brothel built in. But at the same time, you can go around this entire world and see counterexamples.
Yeah.
Where people are free and people are self-determining and people are empowered despite whatever differences they may have.
Well, that's it. That is interesting because that gives... I mean, you know, you're playing a video game, you're interacting with the story, you're interacting with at least the idea of characters and people. It's like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have something that, you know, that elicits that kind of, you know, gross feeling or sympathy if it's orchestrated properly, which it sounds like in that universe. To me, that sounds like it is, because it's like as long as you have different examples around, you know, it's like, because in real life, not that you're in that situation, but you will come into places where you don't have the control to change it, but you'll have to, you know, be in places where ugliness is a thing, where, you know, oppression is a thing, you know, it's a part of that world, and it probably would be a part of that world, you know, so it's like, from the standpoint of like fiction, you know, as long as you are on the right page with it, you know, it's not something I would fault a game like that for exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of like what it's supposed to do by virtue of go for it.
That implies that the entity itself, the game, knows, or the story, the people who made the story know. Like that would imply that it's knowingly there. Whereas, like, if that's the only depiction of women, then that's cause for a much bigger red flag.
And if that's the majority depiction of women,
yeah. If it's like if something icky or something wrong is portrayed, and it seems like the source doesn't get that it's that way, that's what alarms me. If it's depicted properly in a way where it's like, okay, I understand that, you know, I'm not supposed to like this thing, you know.
It's also, you know, there are like nuanced examples of kind of like different, you know, different models, because it's like the cool thing about a game like New Vegas is like civilization as we know it has been trashed, so it's like everyone's got a different idea of what civilization is supposed to be in that game. The whole crux of that game is like, you know, you're determining which faction is going to run this area from here on out. And so it's like you can go to one area, you can go to one faction where, they're trying to model themselves out of the Roman Empire, and, there are all these, like, violent legionaries where, there are no vices, nobody drinks, nobody does drugs, but at the same time, it's like women are treated as slaves and chattel, and that's fucking horrible.
I do so appreciate when there are these weird, when you have like a weird counterbalance of hyper, not moralistic, but you have like this one what is the word I'm looking for?
Pious.
Yeah, it's like there are these pious things, or it's like it's like we are very strict. It's like we don't drink, we don't do anything. Like we take that very seriously. But then you'll have like a flagrant disregard for something else, and it's like it's like when it's like you have. It's always weird when you have like super pristine stuff and like these very I don't know. It's always an interesting when it's like it feels like if you were inclined not to drink or not to imbibe upon any sort of vicey thing, you would also not do any number of other things. So it's always a fascinating counterbalance.
Yeah, when you're only concerned about doing well, just kind of within your very tight, restrictive own bubble.
Yeah.
Not within your...
And then you have like a flagrant disregard for anything outside of it.
But it's like you can either team up with that faction that runs that way, or you can go with this totally different faction where it's like bloated, bureaucratic, like stretched thin democracy. But you walk around their halls, it's like there are plenty of people who are brave and who are upstanding, and they have a functioning military, a lot like what pre-war America, modern day America has. And if you go around like their troops, you will see an absolutely equal collection of men and women as like enlisted people versus like high-ranking officers.
Yeah.
So it's like the thing about that setting is like, you can see the very ugly model of society, and then you can see a very kind of like rough around the edges and compromised realistically in all the ways that like realistic society is compromised, but still at its core it's got some good equality and some good egalitarianism at it.
Yeah.
Its values seem to be a little bit better than the other guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but you can tell like one at the very least,
one sounds certainly more worth aligning with than the other.
Yeah. So I mean, and the issue is like, the people criticizing video games and how they're depicting women. The people are saying, "Oh, you're taking this depiction of women out of context." It's like, no. Here's the bigger context than what you're thinking. People are saying, "Oh, this woman is in jeopardy." Yeah, but you're taking it out of context. It's like the game says this woman in jeopardy is bad, and your job as the player character is to stop that. I'm like, it's like no. But the wider context is like huge numbers of like the most popular games all feature women in this subservient jeopardy. So why are we so like obsessed with like why is the video game world so like obsessed with seeing women in subservient roles who need you to save them?
Oh, I suppose you could break that down in a number of ways, but I don't know. I don't want to stereotype an industry, but it seems very deep fantasy.
Yeah.
It's like you become powerful and you save the day and get the girl.
The empowerment fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like
which I guess is I don't know. I guess that's too broad of a stroke to draw, but like, it is a heavily ingrained story.
Yeah, and I think that's either
not for the better.
What we're waking up to is like the fact that like most culture is kind of based on like wanting to indulge in that power fantasy. So we're seeing that everywhere, especially in like very genre cultures where it's like you're not restrained by ideals of, I guess, quote unquote realism. And so because it's kind of an escapist thing, of course, like pure wish fulfillment fantasies are kind of arise. Or it could be, if you, like you say, you don't want to stereotype the industry, but it's also, if the geek world is full of people who have had the experience of being shut out, chiefly young guys who have felt shut out. What they, it's like, of course, what they want is to save the day and get accolades and, get the girl if they feel like they haven't gotten any, like, female attention.
Well, and that is also, again, I don't know for certain or for firsthand, but I've been told, like, that is a very male-dominated industry. There's not a lot of, female creators or female, coders or anything like that. So it's a voice that's lacking in the construction, So.
You want to know the weird irony of this, like, political conversation that I got into on Facebook today?
What?
The person I got into this conversation with
was myself.
No. It was, and I'm going to try and phrase this in a way that doesn't, like, give too much details, because it's like she doesn't need to be harassed or anything like that. But this person...
Well, I mean, if you just go on your Facebook and harass every woman you're a friend with, you will eventually...
That's a brilliant idea. Brilliant idea.
Yeah. Good because eventually you'll hit the right one.
Yeah.
Be thorough. No.
There was, not by not through any personal connection, but just by proximity, there was a connection to this person who was like a resident of the same area where a very famous, like, publicized, basically male, hate crime against a woman or just womanhood took place.
Ooh.
So it's almost like you think, by virtue of you, it's like you were in this area, you've been in this area, so you should know about this event. So I guess, why aren't you more sensitive to this issue?
Yeah. It's like, why didn't you catch that ripple through your home base, through your community, on the small,
And I think it goes back to, something to be said. It's like, we all like to say, I feel like, if no one has done it, I feel like someone needs to write, like, the book about everything that's wrong with the human brain.
That would be a fascinating read.
Because, I mean, it's like...
Because, brains are, in and of themselves, are tricky business from a scientific stand, ain't they?
Yeah, but it's also...
There's still some mystery there.
There's a lot of mystery, but what we're realizing is, like...
On the physical side.
What we can see in action is, like, the human brain doesn't seem to be very poised for logic and, doing the right thing in a lot of ways. And it takes tremendous mental effort and mental energy to kind of go down a better path.
This may be wrong, but it seems like if you trace the lines of human history, it sort of seems like it's been this long process of trying to move away from the most animal behavior toward something that is closer to the idea of, like, we always view, human superior intellect as this, thing that separates us from the animals, and I feel like, human history has been just the sort of process of reaching that aspiration.
Yeah.
Because, that's, it seems like humankind is always kind of fighting against its animalness, those basic urges and desires and instincts,
It's kind of like the human brain developed under circumstances that, A, we, for the most part, just don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And B, it's like, it developed for ways of thinking that aren't conducive to really moving forward the way. It's like, the human brain isn't built for logic. The human brain is built for more or less pattern recognition. Because, and I guess that's where you can say, like, that's where the drive to create art kind of came from. Because, like, what the human brain really looks for is, having some kind of stimulus and then connecting that to how I should react to this stimulus, and then wanting to stick to that at all times. And so it's like, human brain isn't really good for logic. The human brain isn't really good for understanding what statistics and what probability really mean. Because it's like, basically, it's like I saw, someone's like, I saw 2 reports on the news about inner city crime moving into the suburbs where I live. It's like, yeah, you saw 2 news stories about it, but the statistics of you getting caught up in that are astronomically low, and the only reason that is on the news is because it's an anomaly, and it's shocking. So don't load up on guns, afraid that inner city crime is going to invade your neighborhood. And it's like the vast majority is the chances are whoever lived in that neighborhood had a personal connection to that inner city crime that kind of came and found them. Or it's like everyone saw Jaws and was afraid of sharks, and it's like statistically speaking, people kill millions of sharks a year. Sharks kill 2 people a year sometimes. So it's like, who's really more dangerous to who?
Dude, that new shark gang is taking over LA. If you see sharks rolling down the street in leather jackets
with rollerblades, and sometimes they're underneath the cement, their dorsal fins crack the asphalt. Awesome. But
it's a real problem.
Yeah, it's horrible. Much love to the people who are fighting the sharks of the streets today.
Street sharks.
But it's like, we all like to think, it's like we all like to think that we're not products of our environment, and that, personal choice is the be-all, end-all of how things are today. But it's like, and if someone says, yeah, but the problem is we have a culture that reinforces stereotypes or reinforces these messages, and someone's like, well, you can't keep on you can't say that those messages are teaching people to still believe this stuff. It's like, no, yeah, I can. Because your very complex, nuanced worldview, you don't come out of the womb with that. You don't come out of the womb with the skills to make that or the tools to make that on your own. So you're going to learn the complexities of your worldview from, whatever you're exposed to as a little kid. And your parents can only do so much. So past a certain point, it's like, an hour of your, overhearing your parent talk about the way the world works in their eyes is only going to do so much. When you go out and experience the grand scheme of the planet, thinks a totally different way and drills a totally different idea into your head.
Well, and that ties into perspectives are tricky, because that's all, we're sort of imprisoned by perspectives, because it's all you have is your perspective, other people's perspectives. In theory, you might never know something that is empirically true. You might not ever grasp the true essence of something, because it seems like, there are different theories about cognition, but everything you perceive is layers of filtering and things you've picked up over the years, and you can pare through it, you can get close, I think, but you might not ever perceive something quite as it actually is. And there are so many channels to get caught up in, so you it seems like everybody has to do their best to be your parents' views, the views you're raised with, the stuff you have accessible to you are your training wheels, and then once you get out in the world, it's sort of your job to probe again. It's just you're taking the chisel back to that stone.
And it's like people are saying, it's like we touch on Gamergate a few times today. It's like, people were saying, oh, the thing about the Anita Sarkeesians of the world is that they think that, playing a video game with a misogynist message is going to turn people into a misogynist. And it's like, no, it's not that simple. And no, she never said anything that simple and that reductionistic. It's a matter of misogynist people are going to leach out, maybe not even violent ones, but just unknowing ones, unwitting ones. Misogynist people who, may think that they have a completely nuanced and reasonable view of women, but have just been in a mostly misogynist culture. They're going to dispel more reflections and more misogynist messages out into the world, just because that's what they know the world to be like, and they're not even going to interpret those myths as having anything wrong with them, but they're going to put those messages back out into the world. And then it's like, well, if all these video games have something misogynist at their core, what does that say, about us as a culture that keeps on reproducing this? And two, it's like, what's that going to do? What does that do to future young people who are exposed to these ideas? It's like people are saying, oh, Anita Sarkeesian is saying video gamers are all violent and misogynist. I'm like, well, I don't see any other kind of person sending her death threats. I don't see any other person sending her emails saying that she should get raped. I mean, sorry, dude.
Those bring out of the woodwork.
Yeah, those guys are kind of letting themselves be known.
Yeah.
And just because you don't think you're a misogynist because you played some misogynist games, well, good for you. I try not to be a misogynist, even though I've played Dishonored.
Well, I feel like there's a... and I've learned this partly, too, from experience. I feel like... And then, you learn from that is... I feel like any time you jump out and sort of, passionately go, I am not blank, I'm not a misogynist, I'm not a racist, I feel like that is prime time for someone to step in and, highlight a thing you didn't catch. So, it's like, I hope that in all my doings and in all my views, I embody something that's tolerant. I hope I don't perpetuate misogyny or racism, and I try to live as best I can to those standards. But I feel like just any time I've watched somebody do it, or even in the limited amount of times I've done it myself, where I'm like, no, it's not a thing. Pretty soon it's revealed that, no, it is. And you got to wrap your mind around some stuff, You got to learn. And it's so...
It's also people would think
there's a difference between not being racist and striving not to be racist.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not being racist is not a matter of, you're not born with the racist gene or the not racist gene, although I think maybe there is a racist gene. I can't remember if they found that out or not. But it's
No, it's this guy named Gene.
Yeah, it's if you hit the gym once, you're not swole. If you go...
Well, it depends.
You go to a spin...
What do you... If you hit the gym once and don't leave for a year...
Yeah. The
on a technicality.
You just stick around in this, perpetual workout zone.
Yeah, you pretend to leave, hide out in the ducks, swing back down in the middle of the night, pump some iron,
Hide in the locker room when they're closing.
Yeah. Just keep this up for a year or so. You could be pretty...
I mean, it's somebody saying, it's, the default status of racism or misogyny or transphobia or homophobia or any of these kinds of prejudices, the default is just whatever the broader culture you're within is. So if the broader culture you exist in has a lot of homophobia and a lot of transphobia or misogyny or racism, well, and you just kind of go along with that, well, you kind of have a share in that same broader prejudice that's within the greater culture. If you don't exercise, you're not going to be, healthy. So you can't say it's oh, I'm not lazy. I went to the gym one time. It's I'm not unhealthy. You
got up off your ass that day.
Yeah, it's you got up off your ass that one day. That's not you don't collect a paycheck for that one day worked and just live off of that for the rest of your days. It's you got to keep up the routine.
Yeah, it's a muscle you got to work, you got to push, you got to take a different approach to it.
Yeah.
You got to work your biceps and your triceps
and your mind
and you can engage your mind, your brain,
and your mind,
and your head too.
So heady stuff.
Crazy, man. Don't be crazy.
Don't be crazy.
Don't be crazy.
You want to go to the gym?
Yeah, let's go to the gym and fix racism.
Let's go to the gym and fix racism.
we destroyed the patriarchy. We're on a roll now. We're going to destroy the patriarchy last time. Then we're going to go fix racism. Well, that's the other thing too. Is like, you know, I think you owe it to yourself. You know, if you're part of a majority, to maybe go to the gym. Like, you know, maybe be like, okay, you know, because that's especially like when the most foot in mouth scenarios happen is when white people are like, I'm not racist.
But,
you know, it seems
but I just think that
it's like, if you're not racist, I feel like you probably ought to have already stepped back and have gone, wait, I have, you know,
it's like
I am in this weird privileged position. Maybe I should do some investigating before I just kick in this door and be like, I'm not racist.
It's like, I'm not racist, but I think those angry, violent thugs in Baltimore just got the wrong idea. It's like, well, hang on a sec. It's like, I buy you saying that you don't genuinely have any broad-reaching anger and hatred towards people just by virtue of being black. But the thing is, here is a situation where you can either be suspicious or skeptical or not, and you weren't, and you went with the idea of, oh, these guys are acting violently, they must have their gripes must be totally illegitimate, and, you know, they're just doing property damage for the sake of property damage. It's like, you are going with the default racism that's everywhere all around you.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's possible to be racist without being a despicable asshole.
Yeah.
Just because you haven't identified those things, or, you know, you might not have identified or sought to identify those things, you know. So it's like, and that's perhaps even more insidious because it's harder to spot.
Yeah.
You know, because that just depends on what you happen to say at any given time. So, you know, it seems like any amount of self-searching, or at least just being aware of the stuff that's going on, and then maybe, you know, holding a mirror up to yourself for a second and just checking it out, you know, would behoove you. You, us, we, anybody. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because you can, I mean, you know, it's the ultimate thing. It's like, you could be, I mean, it would be weird, but you can be a totally progressive person and still be an asshole just generally. But, or you could be, you know.
You're not wrong, you're just an asshole.
Yeah, or you could be wrong, but not an asshole. Like, you know, it's all in how you conduct yourself. But, you know, it's still, at the end of the day, you should check that shit out. You should go to the gym.
Yeah, go to the gym. So before we go to the gym and get swollen and racism, we're going to let's do a little bit of dank ass housekeeping.
Dank ass housekeeping.
Yeah. First off, I wanted to give a shout out to Jiggly Jelly.
Jiggly Jelly.
Jiggly Jelly is always just like the most bombastically enthusiastic, happy guy.
He is. He's been a Reject fan for a while. He's popping up.
So he's been an OG Reject fan. So it's like I want to give a shout out to Jiggly Jelly, who's been giving us a lot of encouragement, a lot of positive vibes.
Hell yeah. That dude seems like a good dude. I got him on the Twitters. You know,
he's just.
I hope you're doing well.
Wherever Jiggly Jelly is, he's just happy to be there.
I hope so, man. Yeah. He seems a little blue seemed a little blue.
He said that he had to deal with some personal stuff, but that he's back because I guess he went dark as far as like regular commenting for a little bit.
Yeah,
but I'm glad he's here. Jiggly, if you're listening, it's awesome to have you back, man.
Yeah.
Much love to your girl. He shouts out to his girlfriend a lot.
I know. Yeah. I see.
It's adorable.
It seems like he's very, very passionate.
Shouts out to my girlfriend as well. She's been doing some art for Dank Ass Stubs. We got a brand new official logo thanks to her. So shout out to Erica.
Shout out to my girl just because she's pretty cool.
I gotta meet her.
Yeah, eventually.
Bring her here right now. Bring her to the gym when we go fight racism.
Yeah, we'll go fight racism.
Brian Pantoja. I don't know why
I thought. For a second, I was really expecting it to be Brian De Palma for some reason.
Shouts out to Brian De Palma as well.
Yeah, you know, hey, it's been a while, but I hope you're well.
Yeah.
Who's this? Brian
Pantoja of the Spider-Man avatar. He complimented most recently the opening of the first half of the Always Danking podcast. So shouts out to him. He's a cool guy. Yusuf Ashraf.
Yusuf Ashraf is on like every video. He's an avid fan.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like, he's a a phrase I never thought I would use in relation to anything I do. Weird.
Yeah, Yusef is a cool guy. He's going through finals right now. He may not be anymore by the time this goes up.
Yeah.
But wishing him all the best. And of course,
dude, Premium Dong Sang.
Premium Dong Sang said that she would like to hear an episode about the Babadook. We recorded one back in the day.
We did.
As of right now, it's still on SoundCloud. It's a shorter one.
It is on SoundCloud. Yeah, you can check that out. I'll put a link in the description box.
Yeah.
See, now I'm trying to figure out how to post this like part of me, because it's so unified. I feel like it's gonna be hard to put an act break on it. Yeah. It's also a 3-hour podcast. Yeah. So like
whatever, dude.
Part of me wants to put it up as like a whole odyssey, but then that almost feels like too much. So I don't know where to break it.
We'll figure something out.
Figure it out.
It'll be done.
Figure it out. Remember Figure It Out?
Yeah.
On Nickelodeon.
So that one's still on SoundCloud, the Babadook.
I think we called that episode Baba Dank.
Of course.
This was punish.
Yeah. So we got to figure out what to do with the older audio strictly podcasts. We're still, Dank Ass Stubs is very freeform, and we're like doing this very, very loose and very experimental, like
very loose and very goose.
Very goose. We're still figuring out what Dank Ass Stubs will be. We know that we do seem to be enjoying it so far. Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoy it too. Yeah. Like just two dudes shooting the shreer.
Because we thought we were going to give you guys something short and digestible.
Yeah, we're still figuring. I mean, like
we're just dumping a huge dump. We're just giving you guys a huge dump of stuff to chew on, and very complex conversations.
Yeah, well, I feel like this will
not even about a single movie.
I feel like almost when we have some kind of a site or something, like this will find its permanent legs or its most strong legs. I mean, this is all test beddy stuff. Yeah, so like I don't know if
Dank Ass Stubs is still in beta.
Yeah, exactly. It's like every episode we're tweaking, and it's we're only technically on this run 4 episodes in, so part of me kind of doubts we'll ever hit anything on an hour unless we grow this thing to the point where there are different shows about different things, where it's like here's the show that's here's Dank Ass Stubs, which is about movies. Now here's Dank Gets Deep, where we talk about this. That's what I was going to call this episode, actually.
This is going to be Dank Gets Deep?
Dank Gets Deep.
Okay.
So maybe, like, in the future we'd have, like, a website. Maybe there would be articles. Maybe there would be more art. Maybe there's...
I know Ryan is looking into our website prospects, and the cool thing is once we get a website, we get the ability to have...
downloadable episodes,
downloadable episodes and an RSS feed, and with the RSS feed, we can start looking into putting episodes in pure audio format on the iTunes store.
Hell yeah.
So you can download them and listen to them on your mobile devices very, very easily and very succinctly.
Well, it seems like every show or podcast I've listened to starts out slower, and then gets more energy, and then it's like, thank you. So thank you to y'all, to the folks we shout out, to the folks we have yet to shout out. Like, thank you for bearing with us as we skella grow.
And we can't do this without you guys kind of giving us an idea of where to go and where not to go, and we gotta thank you guys for chiming in.
I mean, I always encourage people on this medium, to be, constructive feedback is good, so it's like if
Achilles Cooper.
Yeah.
he let us know when he didn't like what we were doing, and then he let us know when he was just starting to like what we were doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're always open to suggestions. Ultimately, this is our baby, so what we choose to use or not, is up to us. But any feedback is nice.
What I want to know is, we got Premium Dong Sang commenting on YouTube, but we also got Tina
on
Twitter. So my question is, are they the same person or are they different?
Whoa.
I've never seen them in the same room.
If Premium Dong Sang can make it this far into this epic 3-hour
saga,
Dankathon,
this will be great because I'm going to Vegas when we would normally be recording another episode. So it's like, we have a nice swath of content to go up in my stead.
What I could do is I could break this down to 3 hour-long podcasts.
That sounds wonderful.
Because then it's like you can trickle out. I mean, it might get awkward in terms of where things cut, you know.
Yeah.
But like, because like one episode might be a lot lighter than another, or one segment. But at least in terms of like releasing, it might be nice because if you're out of town, then it's like, well, there's still content coming out at a steady. And there will be a new one tomorrow. So it'll be the second half. Well, also, the schedule's been really weird and fucked up lately. Like
we're also still figuring out what our schedule should be, if we should release episodes at a time or just never.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like, well, should we cut stuff up into hour-long chunks, or should we put everything out as one? You know, where should those go? Is like Friday, Monday. I always aim for Friday, Monday, and I never quite hit the mark. I always get like Friday, Tuesday, or Saturday, Monday, or something weird.
Something always goes weird with the upload schedule.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is like because we are going to do it at a specific time of day, but like, you know, I don't know, feedback is nice.
Yeah, because the YouTube offices where they accept your videos is only open for like, it closes at like 4-ish.
They have people there whose job it is to go through videos and like look for content. Like it doesn't prevent like your video getting uploaded is not subject to that immediately, but like there is somebody whose job it is to just content patrol. You know, just cruise
where
around.
is the content?
Yeah, to just cruise around YouTube watching. I'm sure there's a selection process of some kind, maybe if things get flagged, but there are people there who have to watch shit and decide, like, which just seems like a very challenging job.
So what do you do for a living?
I watched the internet.
I want to make a movie about that guy, and I imagine it'd be just like that Robin Williams movie about the guy who has to watch everyone's life to kind of make a highlight reel for their funeral, and it's kind of futuristic.
What is this?
There was a movie starring Robin Williams where he played like this kind of like this pseudo-mortician, and it was in the future where people had an implant that recorded all their memories, and then it was Robin Williams' character's job to go and pour through all of their memories and sort of distill the highlight reel of their life to play at their funeral and kind of be like their a token of remembrance for their loved ones. So it's like I want a movie about that guy who does that not for a single person, but does that for the entire internet on a day-to-day basis.
Oh,
the guy
day in internet.
The guy who watches us watch.
See, I like that. That's the name of the short story.
Yeah. No, the guitar. He who watches us watch.
Yeah.
Isn't that just he custodians as Stubs custodians or whatever?
You would know better than that.
Who watches the Watchmen? You took Latin. I didn't fucking take Latin.
I know, but like I'm not an encyclopedia. Like I took Latin and I still remember certain things about how things work, but I would still need a book. Like because Latin is also one of those languages where like you do learn conversational Latin. You do, at least as an exercise, you're supposed to communicate using Latin, but books are pretty handy, and it's sort of accepted that, or it seemed like it was accepted that books will be handy. You'll gain a certain amount of foundational knowledge that you won't have to keep going back and looking up, but keep a book nearby. Yeah. Whereas like if you're learning Spanish or French, it's like, well, hopefully pretty soon you can kind of walk around with this.
I think that has in great part to do with the fact that Latin was like it was one of the first languages to kind of have a system for grammar, and so it wasn't exactly clean and easy with that.
Yeah. And there's certain... It's like Latin's a language...
And the V makes a W sound. Get out of here!
Yeah. And well, and is it church Latin or is it classical Latin? But like, because then C's become ch, know, and things... And G's get soft and pronunciation.
And vice versa becomes we que huerca.
Yeah. Winnie Witty Wiki or Vinny Vidi Vici, like they're two... different approaches. And then, there are certain things where you'll have... It's like things will make sense for a while, but then you'll get that one vocab word where it's like, this doesn't decline like any of the other ones simply because you put this letter here and now we can't put these vowels together. Like, or there'll be voices you just don't ever... Like, we almost never learned... oh shit! What was it? Oblatives. We almost never learned oblatives because it were like the it's like if you're calling upon something, you would use it, but it's a rare scenario in which you do that, especially for like objects and things. So like you can like there are forms for stuff that you're not necessarily always going to use.
It's weird. It's like you get older, you get into older languages, and they have so many bits of them that are just like kind of not used anymore because they were for like cultural or social situations that just kind of don't exist anymore. Like English only has you. There's just you. Whereas French and Spanish have a casual you and a respectful you because they're languages that in their current iteration still maintain that from when they were, in feudalist countries.
Yeah.
Or, I know this in French. It's like there's a past tense that's only for when you're writing a novel or a book.
Interesting.
So
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's like, but nobody
people still use.
No, when people write, there's the conversational normal past tense that people don't. That is what people now use for narratives and literature. It's like that literary past tense is just not around anymore.
Oh. Still cool if they had it.
Yeah, but it was kind of very ugly.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I think it was
weird.
because it's like it's like the way in which it took like irregular verbs and how they were turned into like the way in which certain irregular verbs were made for that sense would just like made no sense.
Interesting. Yeah. I wish I learned French. I took a French class in college, and it just wasn't a good year of college courses, so I didn't do well.
I took French through a bunch of not great high school years, but when you go through it for the full 4 years, eventually it's like you pick up a few things.
I would hope so.
Yeah, one bad year is not
hope so.
One bad year is not enough to give you a good rundown of the language, but 4 bad years will give you something.
Yeah, you'd be able to speak like some kind of weird like nature child who wandered out of a wood one day, having only heard French from afar. He picked up a few words and some basic conjugations.
Yeah. So,
I would like to learn French.
So you ready to go to the gym and fight racism?
Let's go fight racism.
All right.
Get in the car. Get in the car.
Oh, and stay dank.